two other floors in a back storeroom in the maybe sixth most important building on the Capitol campus. So that's where we rate. So
room where it happens. That's good.
Good to see you.
Yeah, it's really nice to meet you. So this is, I know you do. Yeah. This is Alyssa and this is Cole. I'm gonna risk it and show you the rest of our school here.
Excellent.
Standing by.
Oh my God! Look at all of you. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, so we're really excited to start this process. We have no pressure. Yeah, no pressure. We have two willing volunteers here who have some questions, but like I think I've indicated a few times, we're not entirely sure. We're excited to do whatever this program looks like, and just you can talk to us about what you do, what is happening in Olympia. We're going to be in Olympia in about a month, and so we're just excited to see these places behind you, at least the pictures of them, the nice screenshot.
Yeah, I think yes, it's not a green screen, but it's the backdrop. It'd be very hard to see both the dome and the legislative floor at the same time.
It's okay. It's well done. This is also a screenshot of a school.
Okay. It's very glamorous. So I don't know. I mean, can the other folks in the class see and hear me okay? Or okay.
Yep. They're all giving thumbs up. Yep. You are on a giant screen. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So fire away. I'm sorry, Cole and Alyssa. Great.
Alyssa.
Fire away.
I'll scooch a little bit.
Good, just keep scooching.
So would you just kind of introduce yourself before they do questions and just say sort of how you got connected to this program, and then we'll let them take over?
Terrific. Absolutely. Hi, I'm Nick.
Hello, Nick.
Oh, you probably want more than that. Anyway, so I got connected to this program. I've been a lobbyist down here in Olympia. This is my 24th year, which I know is before any of you were born. So I've been doing this for a while. When they started this program of Capitol Classroom about 5 years ago, I guess, they asked a number of us to participate, and it just keeps growing and growing. And I really like being a part of it because I'm a big believer in getting people involved in the process. The government's only operates as well as, as its inputs do. So garbage in, garbage out, right? And so the more that people are aware of what their rights are and what their responsibilities are, for that matter, the better that government will function and the better the outcomes will be for all of us. And I think a lot of people, particularly young people and many others, don't feel like they have a voice in government. And so part of my role as a professional, but even more so in this program, is to help you make sense of it. So not just this year for this class, but for the rest of your lives, theoretically, you can be a part of the process to the extent that you want to be, and have your voices heard and get what you want out of the process. So that's what I look at, hopefully trying to get you this year is, the background to participate this year in the conversation. What I've done with other classes is try to identify specific issues or legislation that they want to either follow or have a voice in. I know it's hard to come over here from Spokane, but sending a letter, sending a representative, meeting with legislators when they're back in town in Spokane, whatever. So we can talk about that down the way. To me, the bottom line is, what can we do to help demystify the process for all of you, because it gets a little technical and, frankly, is set up a little bit to keep people at arm's length. And so what can we do to bring you in, sort of take the mystery out of it and make you as impactful as possible as citizens and as students. So that's sort of where I come from on this. And I'm game to go wherever you guys want to go.
Sick.
Could you boost up the sound a little bit? I'm not hearing very well, which may be because I'm old and half deaf, but
yeah, let's
probably the mic, and then we have to speak up.
Okay. Yes, and then I'll just ask you to speak up. Thank you. Sorry.
Is this good?
A long way. It just gets, between Spokane and Olympia, it's hard to hear this far away. So
yes, true.
So fire away.
We'll just start with your first question then.
All right. What is it like to be a lobbyist? What is a lobbyist?
A lobbyist can be a lot of different things. Generally, what a lobbyist is somebody who gets paid. Sometimes somebody who's a volunteer, but in the sort of classic sense, somebody who gets paid, like myself, for working for one or more organizations to try to get results out of elected officials. So I'll sort of contrast what my role is with what some of my colleagues are. So I have colleagues who work for Boeing, as an example, and their job is to represent Boeing's interests here in Washington State, to make sure that the laws about management and labor are to their liking, to make sure that they have in an important way that the tax incentives that they want to make it worth their while to continue producing planes in Washington rather than South Carolina or some of their other plants where it's sometimes less expensive, to ensure that other policies about taxation, about regulation, about education for that matter. How do we get more money into STEM programs so that we produce more engineers and people who can be machinists in Washington State? So that's the type of things that Boeing works on. Other folks that work for just one organization. I have a colleague who works for Northwest Harvest, which is a big food bank over here in the Puget Sound area. And, so her job is to try to find funding to help the food bank operate, in addition to the volunteer and sort of donation resources they get. Change policies, for example, what happens to food that's not eaten at a restaurant or in a school cafeteria? Are there ways to safely donate that? Donate expired food, but how do you safely donate that to a food bank, for example, so that's done? And sometimes that means, putting something in place so that if somebody gets sick from that food, their restaurant or school district doesn't get sued if they've donated that food. And, so policies like that, sometimes very tiny things, sometimes huge things, depending on it. I am a contract lobbyist, so I work for 10 different organizations, mostly bleeding heart human services organizations. I work a lot on getting funding for affordable housing for low-income folks, for programs to serve the homeless and try to keep them out of homelessness or get them out of homelessness as quickly as possible, mental health treatment, chemical dependency treatment, a lot of those types of things, funding for long-term care services for seniors in nursing homes and living in their own homes. So, I'm sort of bleeding heart central when it comes to a lot of these human services programs and healthcare programs. So I work on behalf of a number of those organizations to try to get funding for those things or to try to improve policies to make it easier to prevent homelessness, to get people into affordable housing. I also just this year started working for the city of Spokane. And so I work on behalf of the city council of the city of Spokane on a number of priorities, both changing policy as well as trying to get funding for things. Folks are probably familiar with the bridges downtown that go across the Spokane River. Those are getting a little run down, and so the city of Spokane would like to get some funding to shore up those bridges a little bit, the wooden one and the two concrete ones. So those are those are some of the types of issues that I work on. Both in terms of funding and in terms of policy. And I'm happy to go into more detail about any of those areas, both that I work on that you want to know about, or just sort of what the policy landscape looks like down here. And so my job is to meet with legislators and ask them for money to do good things on behalf of the organizations I represent and the folks they serve, or change policies in a way that makes it easier to do their jobs or makes their jobs more impactful. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
I always try to make sense first. Even if I can't convince you, at least I can make sense as a starting point.
Well, it's better to start there than nowhere.
Yeah, that's true. So, do you like your job, or is it just kind of a living?
I love my job. Here's the deal. It deals with complex issues and difficult situations of policy and politics, and lots of strong personalities, both elected officials as well as some of the folks I work for and the folks I work with as colleagues. And, so like anything, it can be hard, it can be demoralizing, it can be irritating. People are a pain, right, to deal with. And, that is what it is. but I love it because every day I get up and walk the walk on my values. I like to be able to help get more funding to help people get off the streets. In terms of homelessness, I like being able to try to help people with mental health issues to get their lives straightened out by getting the types of medications and treatments that they need and a place to be safe and healthy. So, I mean, what could be better than that, right? I grew up, my folks and my grandparents and my great grandparents before that ran a shoe store. That I did not enjoy. Especially since, kid of the owner always gets the worst job, right? So sweeping the parking lot and dealing with the difficult customers. And selling shoes and helping people, be comfortable and happy with how they look. That's great, right? But I love kicking butt and taking names on behalf of good causes, right? And so that's what lights my fire. And so it's a great application, both of what I think, I hope my skills, but also my passion about what's important to me in helping people who need help and helping people who don't have a voice in the political system a lot of times get their needs met and get their voices heard. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And every day I get to look in the mirror and go, yeah, let's do some good, right?
Another question. Who pays you and how much?
The most
Well, you can go on the website, either us or individually to suit your curiosity. pdc.wa.gov is the Public Disclosure Commission, and they have the records on what every lobbyist makes, what every legislator makes in their real, their non-public jobs, and how much money different groups contribute to campaigns. And so the Public Disclosure Commission was set up and is one of the best sort of government transparency and accountability agencies in the country to have that information available to everyone. So if you want to know what I make, you're going to go look it up and spend your own time on that. I'm not going to give that away for free. So who pays me? A number of different organizations. So I have contracts with, again, 10 different organizations. And some of them are nonprofit groups, who have fundraised or gotten grants or whatever to try to change policy or get additional funding from the government. And so they pay me. The city of Spokane pays me probably out of general tax dollars to help represent the needs of the people of the city of Spokane and get positive policies or additional funding for the city. That's who pays me. And different people make different amounts of money. I know people who are down here on contract who, I have one client that I work for $100 a month, right? Because they've been a client for almost 20 years. I really like them. They don't have a lot of dough. They don't have a lot of needs, right? I'm just mostly here to keep my eye on things for them and let them know if there's anything that they need to do more about. And so, I'm not trying to get rich, but I am trying to make a living. So I have that group that pays me $100 a month. Again, I'm not going to, that pays my restaurant bill a couple days, right? And then there's folks, to provide an outlier example on the other end of the spectrum. The guy who lobbies for the oil companies, the Western States Petroleum Association, makes $25,000 a month, every month, year round. In addition to his dozen or so other clients, all of whom are generally large businesses. He's a great guy. He does a very effective job. He represents his clients well and is a good human being. I disagree with almost everything he says on behalf of the oil companies, but he works his butt off and he earns his $25,000 a month. And that's a chunk of change, right? So there's folks that, literally over their span of clients make over $1 million a year advocating down here. Usually as a group or as a law firm or et cetera. And then there's folks who literally make, $20,000 a month and it's their full-time job and they're, representing people who don't have a lot of money. I think a lot of folks who don't have a lot of money, rather than having a staff person dedicated to it, they'll use their $20,000 and hire somebody like me or one of my colleagues who we're not going to make a living off of one $20,000 client, but we'll make a pretty good living off of half a dozen $20,000 clients, right? And so there's a lot of different ways that the system works.
Right on.
So, so does this like benefit your personal life, or is this just kind of, is it, I don't really know.
How does it affect your personal life?
Yes, that thing he just said.
That's actually a really good question, and not just on mine, but on a lot of people's, right? So there is a there is a noticeable frequency of divorces among folks who are in politics, and that's because the work is sometimes long hours and it's very difficult, right? For many years, I lived down here in Olympia with my family, and then we moved to Seattle because I was always commuting from Olympia to Seattle for meetings when the legislature wasn't in session, and that was hard. And I had a small child at home, and I wanted to actually see her more. And so during off session, I was almost always in Seattle and driving back and forth between Olympia to Seattle. Now, that meant that when the legislative session came around and everything was down here in Olympia all the time, my family was up in Seattle, and I would either have to commute an hour if it's 2 a.m, 3 hours if it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, right, between here and Seattle. And a lot of people, I mean, I'm not just saying that woe is me, a lot of people face that type of dilemma, particularly lawmakers, right? They have families, they have businesses, they have jobs, and so they're really sacrificing a huge amount. I mean, I suck it up because, hey, this is my job, right? And so if I have to drive to Olympia or I have to drive to a meeting in Seattle, I'm getting paid for that in some way. Legislators often just have to eat that, right? They get, I think, during the session, $88 a day to defray their lodging and meal expenses, right? In addition to the, I think, about $40,000 a year that they make as elected officials. And this year, okay, so 2 years, I think this year will be similar. 2 years ago, because we had a House of Representatives that's controlled by Democrats, a state Senate that's controlled by Republicans, it takes a lot of time for them to come to agreement on things, particularly around funding things and potential taxes to help fund things. So the session was supposed to start in mid-January and end at the end of April, and it ended on June 30th, right? So literally the day before, they would have had to lay people off or shut the government down, right? Because funding in the state does a year from July 1st through June 30th instead of January through December. It's called a fiscal year basis rather than a calendar year basis. And so they actually had to send sort of preparatory layoff notices in late June to folks to say, we don't know if we'll have a budget to pay you or continue to operate your program because the legislature hasn't made a final decision about how to fund things and what to fund. If they don't decide that by July 1st, don't come to work on July 1st, right? So what does a state patrol officer, a teacher, a prison guard, somebody who works in a Western State Hospital or Eastern State Hospital where they care for, severely mentally ill patients, what do they do about that? And so, folks signed up with the expectation that they would be spending a couple months down here in Olympia getting paid about $40,000 for it, plus some spare change for meals, and they end up being here for 6 months. That takes an incredible toll on marriages, right? And so a lot of people stay down here during the week and they go home, whether to Spokane or even to Seattle on the weekends to see their families. That's what I did when I lived in Seattle. And my first marriage didn't survive it, right? It was too much time away from my family. And frankly, my daughter, who's now 19, got, messed over in the process, right? She's great, but I didn't have as much time that I would have wanted with her. And I certainly didn't spend the type of time that she deserved to have me spend with her. So I now am, so the good part or the how you deal with it part is I got remarried to somebody I'd known for 12 years who works down here as well. So she understands better the off and on stuff. And you see that happen off and on. We had a new little one last year, and so we moved to Tacoma so that we can drive to Seattle, we can drive to Olympia, whatever, right? But for somebody who lives in Everett or even South Seattle, trying to figure out how often they can go back and forth to their family, much less somebody in Spokane or Newport, right? They're going to have to stay over here during the week, and that's hard on families. So that's not exactly the question you asked, and I'm not trying to just talk about my own personal circumstances, but I wanted to underscore sort of the sacrifice that a lot of people make to come down here, and particularly the folks that are elected or who work for the folks who are elected or appointed, and the type of public service that they're putting into it. They have to live in Olympia, which is not as exciting as living in Seattle, or not nearly as exciting as living in Spokane, of course. And so, that's a sacrifice in and of itself, on top of the community and their families. Why do you laugh? I don't understand. As a contractor to the great city of Spokane, the second largest city in the state, I don't know that I understand your mirth about Spokane.
We're
It's
in
the
North
faces, the faces.
Spokane.
The faces when you said that.
Yeah.
I could see.
Just cringe. Well, first of all, I want to say congratulations. Second of all, I want to say
It's really fun. I have a 29-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a baby who turned 9 months old today. So it's an adventure.
You're always parenting. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
all right. So, where did you go to college, and what degree did you get?
I went to a small liberal arts college in Ohio called Oberlin College. I grew up in a dinky town in Oregon along the Columbia River between Portland and Astoria called St. Helens. My dad was a city councilman, port commissioner, and eventually a legislator in Oregon, and my mom was on the school board, right? And so I never had a chance, right? I was going to be involved in politics and public policy somehow, right? I went back east to college, and after 4 years in the flats of frozen northern Ohio, couldn't wait to get back here to the beautiful Pacific Northwest, right? So I got a double degree in political science and history, and then worked for a year while I tried to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up, and after college, and then went to grad school to get a master's degree in public administration. So that's my background in education. But you don't have to have a specific educational path to be successful in the political realm, right? I mean, elected officials in particular are an extraordinarily diverse bunch, right? You got people who have law degrees, you have people who operate businesses, social workers, lots of retirees, a lot of people who are not the primary income person in their family, and so they have the ability to be in public service. So there's a lot of different paths, and even for folks who are professionals in this world, there's a lot of different paths forward, both in the volunteer realm and in terms of education. So a lot of people, interestingly, that start off as social workers, and then my wife included, who started off as a social worker and then realized that if she was working with families in need every day, she was going to get burnt out and cry every day, right? Because it's a difficult situation, and God bless the people who do that work. And she realized that rather than crying every day, she's going to kill me when she finds out this is on the internet. Rather than crying every day, dealing with families and their tremendous problems one at a time, she decided she wanted to step back and work in the policy realm and help, theoretically, thousands of people with the same amount of time invested by her, but she could move the needle, right, for people's outcomes, maybe not with the same, cost benefit, but in one fell swoop. So, you get, funding increased for food stamps, you get money increased for TANF, you get more homeless programs, and suddenly you're serving thousands of families like that, right? Well, not like that. I mean, it's not that easy, right? But you're providing a lifeline for thousands of people instead of the daily grind of that. And it's still a grind, right? But it's a different type of grind, and one that she found was better suited to not crying every day. I'm sorry, better suited to her sympathetic and empathetic nature. She's really going to.
Crying every day is fine. I mean, it'd be nice
It's not
to
healthy.
not, but it was
It's not
not
healthy.
Moved on, and then she got involved in politics and ran a political campaign, and he's still involved in politics, so I should be nice. a very a boss with very high standards, and she cried every day during that too. So there's different ways of difficulty depending on what you do.
So if your job didn't exist, or if you just kind of chose to not be involved in politics, was there anything else that you wanted to do, like as someone our age?
At your age, I certainly wasn't thinking about being a teacher, right? I mean, being in politics, I was thinking about being a teacher, actually. That was something that was interesting to me. But then I looked around me and saw what a pain in the butt I and all my classmates were. And I was like, why would I want to do that? Look what you get paid. So, but it's about the same thing. And not to put words in the mouth of your teachers, but it's a way to put your efforts forward and help a group of people who need your assistance in some way, intellectual, emotional, what have you, in one fell swoop. So that's actually what I was thinking about when I was in high school, was being a teacher. But again, I think I was always hosed. I was always going to go into politics based on my family, what I knew and what was comfortable to me and what was sort of the normal milieu for me, though both of my parents were teachers before they got involved in, they owned a shoe store and got involved in politics. So, that's what I was thinking, and now, I'm unfit for honest employment. So I don't know what I would do if I wasn't doing this job. There comes a point in everybody's job when you sort of look around and you go, why are we doing this? It's 11:30 at night. I haven't seen my family in days. We've been sitting here waiting for 4 hours for the legislature to do something, and we don't know when that's going to happen or what they're going to do. Why do we do this again? And that is a pain, right? And everybody does that in different ways in their job. But I think, folks who are involved in this job are a little bit of adrenaline junkies, going on that up and down on the process. And frankly, I have the world's worst case of ADHD, right? And so being able to jump from different from one topic to another, having 10 different clients, all of whom have, from 1 to a zillion issues that they're working on, is a nice, is a sort of nice fix for my ADHD. And I don't know if there's a lot of professions that give you that ability to apply those skills. So we just have a little bit left to go. One of the things that I would request, and we've exchanged some emails about this. I exchanged some emails with Karina about this, is narrowing down what you guys want to work on. What more do you want to learn in terms of process? So I think sort of the next steps are learning the process stuff in addition to, sort of how I do my job or how lobbyists do their job. And then looking at what are specific issues that you want to learn more about, that you want to research or dig into, and find the opportunity to merge those two. We'll talk about the process, and we'll talk about the substance of what's interesting to you and what you want to work on. And then we'll find a bill that we can follow through the process, and you guys can follow the hearing process and the consideration process, and hopefully have a role in that, weigh in on that, do a group letter from you all if none of you can come over from Spokane, so that we can hand that to all the legislators from the Spokane area, which is about 15 of them, and say, hey, here's what the kids here's what the young adults at this school feel is an important thing for you to be paying attention to, and an important thing for you to take a position on. Be yes on this bill, be no on that bill, spend this amount of money on whatever. And I'm happy to work with you both to understand the process and how we fit into that, as well as what issues you might be able to have a big impact on that are of interest to you. And I would say pick something that's of particular interest to you that, is not just, as you said, just a thing, just going through the motions, but something that you feel will benefit you, your families, your community, whatever, that you have some skin in the game, because otherwise it's, it can be just a drill. So I would pick something that you care a lot about. that's how I pick my clients. That's how I pick the issues I recommend for them to work on, what really matters. So
Nick, do you just want to kind of start cruising through, like on the legislative website, like what's out there, what's available, or is that kind of your recommendation for our process?
I would start. I think our next connection is in 2 weeks, or is it? Yeah, it will probably be in 10 days to 2 weeks, something like that. So maybe, Karina, you and I can exchange emails about some of my ideas or some of your ideas about that. But I'd start talking about that and not even getting into bills at this point. There's bills, again, we're going to be here 6 months. There's plenty of time to talk about bills. But identifying those issues that you're passionate about, whether it be potholes or whether it be pot, right? Lots of stuff to talk about. And all of which has somebody here working on it. So thanks. I know you guys got to go, and I just really appreciate the time you're investing in this. I know that I think I am much funnier than I actually am. My 19-year-old tells me that several times a day, so my apologies if I make bad dad jokes, but it's to try to help everything go down a little easier, right? Because this can get dry. And so I really appreciate your guys' attention, and hopefully I'm not boring the heck out of you too much yet.
Absolutely not. We're fascinated.
It's been with you all a lot.
Okay, thank you. We will see you soon, and we'll be in touch, okay?
Look forward to it. Well, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.